Hello! Welcome to the prologue for Geva Theater's production of The Woman in Black. Before tonight's performance, I wanted to take a few minutes just to talk about ghost stories, theaters, and why a story like The Woman in Black has endured for so long. My name is Sarah Hartman. I'm the Interim Literary Manager here at Geva, and I cannot tell you what a joy it's been researching this production and getting to see it all come together. I've always loved this moment just before the lights go down, when strangers are sitting together waiting for something to begin. In many ways, this is exactly how the best ghost stories have always been shared, gathered together in anticipation of something that's just around the corner. So before diving into the history of ghosts on stage, it's worth asking a more fundamental question. Why do we tell ghost stories? What draws us to ghosts, to the supernatural? In short, why do we like being scared on purpose? So ghost stories have never really been just about ghosts, of course. Across centuries and cultures, they tend to surface around really deeply human concerns, such as memory, loss, guilt, or the uncertainty of what happens when we die. Humans are uncomfortable with the idea that a life might simply end, or go on but in a different and inaccessible place, what Shakespeare called the undiscovered country. And we're also made anxious that something important could remain unresolved before we go. So psychologists and anthropologists have suggested that ghost stories are one way that we try to make sense of this anxiety surrounding death and the unknown. They allow us to confront these frightening ideas indirectly through story rather than confronting them head on. Dr. Helen Marshall from Queensland University has observed that horror stories do different things to different people. In some cases, they act as cautionary tales. In others, they allow us to explore things that we feel are transgressive and give us a safe space to do that. Part of that safety comes from control. And as Dr. Marshall goes on to note, it's an experience that we get to choose. So you can turn off the TV or close the book when you don't want to engage anymore. Fear, in this context, is contained. We decide how close to get, for how long, giving our nervous system the opportunity to process feelings of fear from this place of safety. So from a neuropsychological perspective, fear is also chemically engaging. The amygdala, which is the most evolutionarily ancient part of our brain, and it's responsible for detecting threats, this part of the brain becomes highly alert when something feels uncertain or incomplete. So as such, our brains are really attuned to things like half-formed images, shadows, unexplained sound, and in response, the body releases adrenaline and other hormones, other stress hormones that heighten focus and heighten awareness. But these chemicals, one of which is dopamine, can also create a kind of exhilaration, which is why fear, in controlled doses, can feel really thrilling rather than overwhelming. So fear can feel fun. Ghost stories with shadows and sounds in the dark are particularly effective at activating this response in our brains. But ghost stories, of course, aren't only psychological or neurochemical, they're also deeply social. Shared fear creates a shared experience. Feeling that tension together, even briefly, can be very bonding. And as Dr. Marshall puts it, sharing the experience gives us a better way of processing it. There's also something important about what ghost stories do once they've been told. Across cultures, they often function as moral or cautionary tales, stories that reflect a community's values and unspoken rules. As folklorist Dr. Daniel Compora has noted in his work on folklore and fear, many ghost stories persist not simply because they frighten us, but because they encode lessons about morality, responsibility, and consequences. So ghosts tend to appear when something has gone wrong. And in this way, fear becomes instructional. It's a way of reinforcing social memory and reminding a community of listeners about what matters most to them. So when you combine psychological need to grapple with uncertainty, with this rush of brain chemicals, with this social function of processing things together, it's no wonder that ghost stories have almost always been told in groups, gathered together in dark spaces, like a campfire at night, or a slumber party, or a theater. So the theater is a particularly fitting place to tell ghost stories. It's already a space that is filled with memories of strong emotions, of words that were spoken but have now vanished, stories that are told again and again and again. And it's really no accident that so many theaters are said to be haunted. Whether or not you believe those stories, theaters are a place where the past and present are constantly overlapping with each other. Every night, people gather, they speak, they transform, and then they disappear. That's it. The room remembers. And even the lamp that's left on stage at night, with a single light bulb left glowing, is called the ghost light. And maybe we theater folk are just superstitious. Of course, the light is for physical safety, but traditionally it's also there to drive spirits away, or depending who's explained to you, it also could be to leave a light on for them to perform while we're gone. So there are some famously haunted Broadway theaters, one of which is the Palace Theater, which is haunted by the ghost of a vaudeville acrobat who fell to his death and is said to be seen late at night swinging through the rafters. The New Amsterdam is supposed to be one of the most haunted Broadway theaters, and there are regular sightings of a young woman named Olive, who is a Ziegfeld Follies girl, who is sometimes said to be heard tap dancing in the theater. And then, of course, there's also the Belasco Theater, which is said to be haunted by David Belasco himself, who will occasionally be seen watching tech from the balcony or sitting behind actors in their dressing rooms, but when they turn around, he's gone. Every theater person I know has experienced or heard at least some story of a theater ghost. And in fact, there are some of these stories that hit a little bit close to home. So here's a couple folks from Geva Theater to share their stories with you.
There are a lot of stories about Geva being haunted. A lot of them have to do with Sarah, who was a woman who was here during the Spanish flu epidemic when this was a place of quarantine. She died of the flu and has been haunting the building ever since. She's been seen in our rehearsal hall, downstairs in our basement where our green rooms are, and apparently she loves riding the elevator because it has been seen stopping and opening randomly with no one on it all over the place. That explains a lot of the supernatural things that have been witnessed here at Geva Theater by multiple staff members.
So now that you've heard those stories, keep an eye out. You might just have a ghostly Geva experience yourself. So I now want to talk a little bit about the Victorian stage tradition. So this is the era in which The Woman in Black is set. And I think that there's a lot about what was happening with stagecraft at that time that connects to advances in theatrical, supernatural storytelling. I don't want to give away any of this production's stagecraft, so let's talk about the theatrical past instead. So in the mid-19th century, theaters were more than just stages for plays. They were really laboratories of wonder and imagination. Technological and scientific advances were booming at a pace that made demonstrations of these things seem to the layperson like magic or something otherworldly. For instance, Michael Faraday's Christmas lectures, a series of public scientific talks that included live experiments, attracted crowds that were so large. Papers of the day said that it was more fashionable than opera. They were populated with everyone from the people on the street to nobles and scientists alike. They were all gathering to see gaslight, combustion, early electricity, having these things brought dramatically to life on stage right before their very eyes. So simultaneously, Victorians were also captivated by spiritualism and seances. So this was a cultural phenomenon that promised contact with the spirit world. Shows blending illusion with the supernatural appeared on theater bills, drawing crowds who were eager to see mediums claiming they could talk to the dead or see actual ghostly manifestations. These events were both entertainment and a way of engaging with the era's obsession with the unknown, which was perhaps in response to the high mortality rate at the time. That connects back to the psychology of fear and loss and grief and things like that. So it was in this era's intersection of science and seance that there came a new development of stage illusion that would reshape theatrical ghost making. And this is called Pepper's Ghost. So if there's any Disneyland or Disney World fans out there listening to this, you may have heard of this technique before. It was invented by chemist and popular science lecturer John Henry Pepper in 1862, and the effect works by placing a sheet of glass at a 45-degree angle between the audience and the stage, and positioning a brightly lit actor in a hidden compartment that's either below it or to the side of it. And with lighting changes, this image then looks like it can materialize, disappear, interact with set pieces. It's caused genuine astonishment in Victorian London. And what makes Pepper's Ghost truly enduring is not just its Victorian brilliance, but its continued life in entertainment today. So variants of the same principle are used in theme parks and concerts to create these ghostly figures right on stage. And one of the most famous examples is the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, where ghosts appear to float in an empty space right before the audience's eyes. And so though this technique isn't used in our show tonight, it demonstrates just another way that theater and ghosts have always been intertwined. From the content of stories to the stagecraft that's used to try and bring them to life, theatrical storytellers have long been fascinated by the supernatural. Pepper's Ghost and other Victorian illusions really remind us that the power of a ghost is not in what is shown, but in what the imagination fills in. So The Woman in Black belongs to a long theatrical and storytelling tradition that's shaped by Gothic fiction, Victorian ghost stories, and a theatrical language that relies on audience imagination and our very own psychology. Tonight, you too are stepping into that lineage, joining generations of listeners who have gathered, leaned in, and allowed themselves to be unsettled together. Thank you so much for listening, and please enjoy the performance.